Well, as you know well, if you read the Washington Post magazine or newspaper or whatever it is now, in the summer of 2016, Donald Trump Jr. met with a Russian lawyer in Trump Tower, the pivotal event of the last decade, perhaps generation. Before and after that meeting, young Mr. Trump made some phone calls, very suspicious phone calls. And all of us assumed those phone calls were either to Vladimir Putin himself or to his father, the president.
Donald Trump Jr. talked to Emin Agalarov, had a phone call, and then made a phone call right after that to a blocked number. And then he calls Emin Agalarov right back to a blocked number. And so we know that this blocked number may very well be Donald Trump's.
Sandwiched between those calls back and forth between Don Jr. and Emin Agalarov is a blocked call. And we wanted to know, did that come from the president? Was the president involved in the planning or the approval of this meeting? So we said, let's subpoena the phone records and find out.
The timing, right in the heat of this meeting makes it sound like he was calling somebody to report about the meeting and what was going on with it.
Blocked number. It could only be three things: the president, Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin, or his handler somewhere in Russia. Well, it turns out it wasn't any of those things. It turns out that Donald Trump Jr. was calling a business associate. Oops. But don't let the facts induce any self-reflection. Please. Dan Bongino is a former Secret Service agent, author of Spygate, the attempted sabotage of Donald J. Trump. He joins us tonight. So blocked number is not necessarily, so if I get a call from a blocked number, you're saying it's not necessarily the president?
Tucker, let's be clear. There was never any evidence whatsoever that Don Jr. called his father after this meeting. None. What you just played with Adam Schiff, and I believe it was Swalwell, that was nothing more than a conspiracy theory. This was another one of those, Tucker, if true stories. If true that Don Jr. called this, it was never true. There was never a scintilla of evidence. But here's what is interesting, Tucker. They seem so fascinated about the communications amongst Don Jr. after this infamous Trump Tower meeting, right? But what they won't tell you is what's already on the record is the two Russians that showed up did have meetings after the Don Jr. Trump Tower meeting. They met, one of them met with Fusion GPS, who prepared the notes, and the other one went out to dinner with a lawyer who's a close friend of the Clintons, whose wife was a higher up in the Clinton administration. But don't worry, nothing to see here, folks. Don't worry, we're only concerned about the block number phone call.
So how could a florid conspiracy nut, a Russia truther, wind up as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee? How does that happen in a normal country?
And Tucker received no serious pushback. If you and I were to go on the air with a widely debunked, what you thought to be a fact, that he called his dad, and he didn't. It's not in dispute anymore. We would never hear the end of it from anyone. Conspiracy theorist, the title will be thrown out forever. This is now the fourth or fifth time we have seen a prominent Democrat run with a debunked hoax anti-Trump story. And Tucker, almost nothing happens to their reputations at all. It's brushed off like nothing ever happened. This was the key component to their whole collusion conspiracy. They met with these evil Russians, and then Don Jr. talked to Dad. Except it didn't happen, and the Russians were connected to the Clintons.
Let me just ask you really quickly, news of the day, Ralph Northam saying he's not going to resign. Does this suggest that he and his party are basically pro-choice on the question of Klan hoods?
Tucker, I was sent this picture in October of 2018. I couldn't run with it because I couldn't verify it. You know what this tells you? People in the Democrat Party probably knew about this picture a long time ago if I had it in October.
Well, that's kind of...
Yeah,
really?
I have the email.
I wish I'd asked you about that earlier. Maybe you can come on next week and we can do a forensic re-examination of where it came from. Dan Bongino, have the best weekend. Thank you.
Good to see you.